Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Lau, the Senior Content Specialist of LEARNTech Asia. Now, on behalf of LEARNTech Asia, I would like to extend a very warm welcome and thank you to our speaker, Professor Elizabeth Lee, and all our attendees for joining us here today. We know that the pandemic has permanently changed the way we live our lives. But did you know that because of the pandemic, it will take us not just 99.5 years to close the gender gap, but 135.6 years. Now, this global gender gap will have a scarring effect on women's access to learning and skill building opportunities, which is why LEARNTech Asia created the Women in Learning Trailblazers for a Better World series. In short, Women in Learning. Our focus for this series is threefold. The first one, establish easy access to learning for women in Asia. The second, empower women in Asia to pursue their lifelong learning journey. And the third one, encourage women in Asia to be our own leaders. And part of our Women in Learning series aims to highlight the importance of raising more women into leadership and decision-making positions. You might ask, why is that important? We'll give you a very simple example. Nations led by women leaders have seemingly managed the pandemic better than nations led by male leaders. And that is why LEARNTech Asia believes that empowering the next generation of female leaders and decision makers is so important. Now, this afternoon, we have the privilege of having Professor Elizabeth Lee, CEO of Sunway Education Group, here with us. And we are so happy to have you here, Professor Elizabeth. But before we jump in, I want to introduce her just a little bit for any of you who might not know who she is. Now, under her leadership since 1992, Sunway Education Group has developed from just one institution to a dynamic group of 17 institutions. That is a very impressive one there. An educator at heart, who immerses herself in her students' well-being. She is the driving force behind the education group's mission to provide a holistic and inclusive learning environment for all. So welcome, Professor Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's really great to be here with all of you. I see many women and also men amongst our viewers today. And so it's great to have everyone because we can't talk about women without talking about men.
That is so true. Yes, it's really nice to see a diverse group of people in our audience. And we know that not everybody has been able to attend it live, but we're very happy to see those of you who have made your time as well. Now, just a little, not ground rules, but house rules. We have actually muted everyone but for Professor Elizabeth and myself, but we will also actually have a session later, a Q&A session. So you can just raise your hands and we will unmute you, and then you can obviously ask Professor Elizabeth herself the questions. Or if you are a little bit shy, go ahead and write in the chat group. Just make sure it gets sent to everybody so that Professor Elizabeth and I can look through the questions for you. All right, so let's just dive right in. Professor Elizabeth, you are a very influential woman in the space that you're in right now. And I think my first question, having done a bit of research for Women in Learning series, is kind of, who were your inspirations, to kind of, to build up into the position that you are in today?
I suppose one of the inspiration would be my mother, although I must say at a very early age, I wouldn't say she discouraged me. I would have thought she motivated me even more by saying that, women, you should consider being a teacher, because with a teacher, it's a half-day job, and the other half a day you can go home and take care of the children. I love children, don't get me wrong, but the idea of taking care of the children alone as a career did not quite jive with me at that point, purely because I really wanted to contribute a lot more to life and in life, and I just believe that I have so much more to give of myself. And so, in a way, I went all out to prove my mom wrong in the sense that women can juggle both. And teaching is not a half-day job. You have to give your whole self to a career to make it meaningful for yourself and also for the people that you um, work with and strive for. For example, your colleagues, the school that you work with, and in the case of striving for, would be the students that you come in contact with. So, in that sense, my mom indirectly was a great influence to me. She was a teacher herself, and she taught me quite a lot of things about life. But having come from, having been a single child in that family, has also, in a way, encouraged me to do a lot more as a person rather than just as a woman, because I am also both the son and the daughter.
That's very interesting to hear. And I get what you mean. I completely understand about teaching not being a half-day job. I was a
No, it
lecturer
isn't.
before this, so I completely understand the
Oh, in the
sentiment.
pandemic, it's a 24/7 job for a lot of my colleagues.
Yeah, that
Um,
is so true. That is so true. Okay, thank you, for like that. That's a very nice icebreaker, and that's nice to hear that your mom has always been an inspiration for you. I want to kind of like dive into some of the questions, that we previously talked about as well. What are some of the challenges that young women face in the pursuit of their career? Whether it's just them entering their jobs, or kind of transitioning, but basically the idea is for them to enter and become decision makers. What are some of those challenges?
I actually believe that young men and young women enter the job force with equal opportunities. Um, Sometimes what holds a lady behind could be because of family. And if they are going to take a little break from their work, for example, to have a child, whether it is a 2 month break, as short as a 2 month break, or even a 1 month break, and then come back immediately after the full moon of the child, it's still a little break. And having children also does change a person's perspective, a person's demands on her time, obviously, and the pressure, whether it is from family members or from society as a whole. So, in that sense, the pressures then begin to build up, especially when um, a lady decides to start a family or a lady is going to start a family. Now that is when it becomes a lot more tricky, and how then do you juggle and show that you are still able to contribute meaningfully to your career while being a mother at the same time. And that depends very much on the person and how she is to juggle that. By showing that you are very interested in pursuing your career, even though you're a mother, by just being there and being present, I think signals, um, the right messages to management, for example, because they know that you're sincere and you really want to make a career out of your job, and you're willing to go that extra mile. It is true that women will have to go that extra mile, especially when raising a family, even though in my case, I had a lot of help. I had a lot of help from my husband, who was very and still continues to be very supportive, from my own parents, from my in-laws. There was not really much pressure from them to actually give up my career for my family. Definitely not. They were very encouraging. Then from the and then from there, you have to show that you are. I mean, you asked me about decision making, right? How do women prove that the fact that you have taken charge of your life and you have put things in place to juggle between your family and your work? I think that demonstrates a lot to the management, to your bosses, for example. In my case, when I had my children, I was very determined to give them during my time, and I still believe that it's still valid, and that is to actually breastfeed the children, because it is believed that breast milk is very good for babies, because babies will then inherit the immunity of the mother. And so I was determined to give my children that head start, and I was not going to deprive them of that. And now, of course, that becomes very complicated because you're working at the same time. So how do you feed a baby, right? In those days, there was not the opportunity to work from home. But the thing is, how I did it was that I made sure that I expressed enough milk that could sustain the baby during the time when I was at work, and 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 I would do this continuously, even during work. It was not a secret amongst my colleagues whether they were male or female, and that's when women, you got to get over the stereotyping and your shyness, etc. And I would just go away. But when I went away, I made sure that I was available. And with technology, you can do that very easily, especially in this day and age as well. You can still stay connected with people you need to meet. You may turn off your camera, obviously. And in my days, what I did was that I made sure I had a speaker phone, in the alternative or the alternate room that I used to express my milk, for example. And so that worked very well because I was available at all times to my colleagues, and I could even, during that time, spend some time reflecting, and it worked out very well. So the idea is to see how you multitask, and don't, and if we try hard enough, we should be able to find those opportunities to do so. It doesn't need to be one thing or the other.
I think I mean, from, just your sharing here, it sounds like you really definitely had a very supportive system, not just at home, but in the
Yes, I did.
workplace. Yeah, I mean, I think not not every company or not every woman, who is an expecting mother or a new mother who has, has to breastfeed, or, have to figure out how to take care of their children, especially when they have to go back into the office, or, even when they are working from home. Not every mother has that support system that you shared. How can women go about with that, or how can the companies, the organizations that they work for, do better in um kind of supporting them? Because I think when women are better supported, when it's made more obvious that they have a healthy support system, then they are more candid, or probably they will become more confident in stepping up and becoming leaders themselves, because they see that there is that support there for them. What would you say of how people can go about being more supportive?
Well, it again starts with the person. It starts with us. We need to tell people how they can be more supportive. We need to ask. We need to ask very nicely. For example, if someone had placed a meeting during that time, we must not be shy. We must, consciously ask, do you mind? Because this is a time when I would need to, express my milk, or I need to be, in a private situation. But nevertheless, I am with you in the meeting. And if you don't mind, my camera may be off at certain points. But I would come back, but nevertheless, I am participating, and to ensure that we are participating. The other thing is also to ask for bosses to be more supportive. Are we able to, to speak with HR, speak with bosses? Are we able to have a room where women can go to and they can express their milk, for example? Or are we able to carve ourselves out a place? I mean, I remember that we used to go out to lunch, and what I used to do was to just find a corner if I could not find a room where I could feed my baby. And so it's not just about expressing milk. So I will actually go and find a corner, and place a shawl over my baby and me, while I quietly nurse my children. So it's again, I think a lot of times up to us as well. Ask, look for opportunities, and don't be shy.
Sorry, the mouse ran away from my screen. Yeah, I mean, that's really good to hear. I think one of the conversations I had recently also with another female leader, is that we have, as women ourselves, we must build that confidence to be willing and be less fearful to speak out about what we need, the kind of like the flexibility that we may need, especially in this whole, hybrid workforce kind of situation right now. Are there other skills that you think young women should develop, to become more successful and more authentic decision makers, other than being more confident about asking, any other skills?
I think EQ is very important, because even in asking, we need to ask politely. We need to see the situation and how we should approach it. So if you were to ask me what other skills, I would be say to hone your EQ skills as to how you would approach a situation, and not just demand for certain things, knowing full well that, for example, if if a teacher needs to teach at a certain time, obviously, that time is inconvenient because the teacher needs to be, seeing the students, and you can't go away from that. So we need to be flexible as well, but at the same time, maybe we can negotiate with the person who did the timetabling to say, is there some way that we could see how to, retime my classes, for example. The other thing is actually to go that extra mile myself and to look around and say, look, maybe I can exchange with this person, and actually go up and ask, rather than to depend on another person who could be very busy with other timetabling pressures, to try to put you in. And as I always say, if you don't ask, you don't know. So I would say yes, that there is that need, to learn all these.
Yeah, I read recently that, communication or EQ is no longer a soft skill, it's a power skill. And I
Ah,
thought,
yes,
yes, I thought that
that's
was
very
a
good.
really good one. I can't remember which report or whatever article I read. I thought that was amazing, that it's no longer a soft skill, it's a power skill that each and every one of us has to develop. And I think
Mm.
women are also a little bit more, I guess, because a lot more women are teachers, or women are perceived as better caretakers, the communication skill, those power skills may or may not come naturally. But I think those are probably one of the more important skills that we need to develop, not just as women, but as, individuals, as a person, as you say. Um, I guess another question would also be, other than motherhood, what else can a woman do, or what else can a woman develop, in terms of her skills, to become a better decision maker, other than, because motherhood demonstrates her ability to multitask, her ability to be a responsible individual, time management, a lot of communication skills there. Anything else, especially in this kind of like very digital technological age that we're living in?
I like the way you have mentioned multitasking. I'm told that this is a skill that women have that men may not have at all. The men who are here amongst us, I'm not sure whether they would like to rebut, but that's what I'm told. So if that's the case, I think women should really use it to the hilt, and prove that yes, indeed, we are able to do that. But other than that, as you mentioned, what else do we need to? Sorry, your question was what else do we need to?
Yeah, especially in this like digital age that we're in.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Oh, okay. So, like for instance, other than just communication or power skills, are there any other skills that women need to develop,
Yes,
especially
yes.
in this digital age? Yeah.
I feel that women need to take more initiative. A lot of times, we may just sit back and wait for our bosses to assign us little jobs and or big jobs, and wait for it. But I'll come back to this position where sometimes we need to ask and say, look, perhaps I can contribute in that group, or I can do that. I see that you need some help. Perhaps I can help you. Do it with not the intention of wanting to take over somebody's job, but do it with the intent to actually support someone else in what they are doing. By doing so, we are learning new skills. By doing so, we also form a lot of allies, which could come very important in time to come, because we also show that we are able to work as a team and we're willing to go the extra mile. So all these are tenets of or values of a leader. And the sooner we hone these, then the better it is, rather than to sit back and wait for someone to tell us what to do.
That is true. Okay.
That's not a leader. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A leader takes charge and stands up
Yeah.
and said, "Yes, I'll do that. I'll volunteer my time." But of course, you volunteer wisely and make sure it's something that you are able to do. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
you said if nobody else is doing that, then you may say, "Look, I may not be very good at this, but I'm willing to give it a try. If you're willing to have me, and I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to read up. I'm willing to attend classes." So
I-
yes.
Are those the kind of like, is that what you did? Because I mean, I know that you didn't start out as the CEO of Sunway Education Group. You definitely climbed your way up, and you are now the CEO of Sunway Education Group. Is that is that what you did? You put yourself out there, you were willing to learn and explore new skills.
Let me share with you when I first started my first job. I was a teacher, and that was exactly what I wanted to be. But at the same time, I felt that I could help out in admissions. And so I went up to the group registrar, rather the registrar, and I said, look, can I help you? Because I uh, developed some letters because these people are writing in, and I've helped with the counseling, and they're keen to join this college, they're keen to be students. Perhaps I can help you by formulating an acceptance letter to accept the student, because I just checked, everything else is fine, and we're able to do that. And so before I knew it, I had a job as admissions tutor come teacher. And then as the students came in, I noticed that some of the students needed a little bit more help, and they needed a listening ear. So then I found an empty room, and I said, let's make this into a counseling room. And then the students can come and talk to us, we can talk to them in private. So then, I asked if I could have that room as a counseling room, and then I said, okay, whenever I'm free, I will go in there. Or if students want to see us, then, any one of us can go in. And then we started making it look a little bit more cozy and all that. And before I knew it, my card had teacher come admissions tutor come counselor. And I wasn't
Oh,
paid for the other two jobs at all. And it doesn't matter, because I was learning a new skill. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, okay, so that sounds amazing, because you are basically walking the walk. You're walking the talk, sorry, walking the talk, because you mentioned about how that one of the skills that we must have is that we must be willing to step forward, be proactive, and go ahead and ask how we can help, or make the suggestions that we think might be useful for, whether it's within the department that we're in, or like the departments around us as well. Are you still learning new skills as a leader?
Oh, yes. I'm definitely learning new skills.
What
Learning
are
to
those
Zoom
skills?
during the pandemic. I still need to learn how to upload my slides. Otherwise, I depend on help to do so. Yeah. technological skills,
Yeah.
and then I always joke about, trying to use my phone to take better pictures so that when I retire, I can have a cari makan job as a photographer with just a handphone.
That is a very, very good job. A lot of people are looking for good
Oh, yeah,
photographers.
yeah. A lot of competition out there, though.
No, it's okay. You have your
So
own
the
people.
airlines are important, take good
Yeah.
pictures for all your friends, and then after that, they say, oh, let's hire her.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I recognize that we are running short of time, so I just want to open up the floor to our attendees. We have a few questions already. So I think the first one is by Aizuddin Danyan. So sorry, Aizuddin, if I might not have pronounced your name correctly, but basically he's saying that thanks for your insights. My question is that in this day and age, we still see pay inequality between men and women. In your opinion, why is that still happening? And what can we do as individuals to change that, or be positively yeah, change that. So that's what he's asking.
Izudin, you are right. I am aware of this. People have told me so. Women also need to, first of all, know their worth. Remember what I said about making sure that, you ask for certain things, and sometimes HR and even bosses need to be reminded, hey, why am I not being compensated as fairly as why is he being maybe valued more, and allow the bosses to actually tell you why, because sometimes it's not about women and men having the same job responsibilities, and hence they need to be paid equally. It's not about that. It's also about what you bring to the table. Maybe the man is bringing a lot more to the table than I am as a woman. If that's the case, then I think I would want to know about it, and and then I would want to know if I'm able to match up to it. You know what I mean? So I think self awareness is very important in this particular instance.
Yep, I think that's great. Hopefully, Aizudin, that answers your question. We have another one by Conrado Roxas. That's a very nice last name there. Is spirit, oh my goodness, is spirituality a major factor in your life as a mother and a leader? Thank you, Elizabeth.
Conrado, it is important. I cannot do what I do without God in my life. I mean, that is a fact. He anchors me. He makes sure that my values are kept, and very often when the going gets tough and I get down on my knees, he guides me and shows me the answers. So spirituality is very much a part of my journey and a very central part of it.
Okay, thank you. I think another one is just how important is the role of a healthy new learning culture in raising that next generation of female leaders? How important is learning, creating a healthy learning culture?
I think it's very important because a lot of stereotypes are being pumped into us. Not even pumped, it's being, insidiously or nurtured into us without our knowing so. For example, in a classroom, I think a teacher has to be conscious that when you ask students to do certain jobs, you don't have male roles versus female roles. If a girl can do the job as well, why not offer that to the girl? We really need to be a lot more conscious to foster inclusivity and gender equality within the classroom itself. And this is something that we consciously will tell our teachers to ensure that they do that. It is important that both boys and girls are given the same opportunity, not just girls alone, but boys and girls.
No, I completely agree that both genders or anybody, whatever gender you are, you should be given equal access to that learning culture or
Yes,
learning opportunities
yes.
for sure. I like Gemma Gornes' question, but I'll phrase it a slightly different way. She's actually asking who can be the better or the best leader, woman or man. But maybe what I can do is just ask you, in your opinion, how does a woman leader differ from a man leader? Because I think women bring to the table something different, and man leaders also bring something different to the table. And I think it's a matter of like marrying kind of the two best qualities. But in your opinion, what is it that a woman leader brings that is different from what a man leader brings?
Men and women are the yin and yang, as I always say. The two need to come together. I mean, God made us that way, and so why are we trying to be more manly, or as we become leaders? Far from it. We just need to be ourselves as women, and also don't go all out to antagonize the men or to put them down in any way, because we need each other. Men need women in the workforce and women need men. There are times when a woman leads and there are times when a man leads. What is the CEO versus COO versus C whatever O? They're just acronyms. The important thing is to get the job done. And you could be a leader because someone put you in a certain chair. But what is more important is that you're a leader of hearts and you're a leader of minds, that people recognize you as the rightful leader. And that's what it's all about. It's not about a title.
Yep, that's great. Thank you. Gemma, I hope that does answer your question. I got one question sent to me personally. So I'll just ask that question. I don't think it's for me for sure. It's to be for you, Elizabeth. What were the challenges that you faced climbing up that ladder in being a leader? I think that we can kind of like try and start closing it, but that's one question. What are some challenges other than maybe motherhood?
Well, I will address some people call it the elephant in the room. It is true that in many organizations, because the men are at the top and they seem to favor their bros or other men to come up because they feel more comfortable a lot of times with working with another man. For example, if you're traveling, for example, people have a tendency to sometimes talk, oh, they're going, they're traveling together or something. When it's absolutely professional, and that's where we have to stop all this. So sometimes you can understand why certain men may feel more comfortable with another man, and likewise women and women. But the thing is that we need to therefore then be very conscious, and we need to be very conscious and actually ask to be included. And the other thing that we need to hone is to make our male counterparts feel comfortable with us.
I like that. Make them feel comfortable with us. Do you mind
Yes.
elaborating just a little bit about what you mean by that?
Um, okay, let me just give an example. For example, with the example I gave about sometimes men and women need to travel professionally. Yeah. I think it helps, for example, for a woman then to understand the man's family a little bit more, to be more invested in your associates' family, the wife, for example, the children, for example. Then I would have thought that then I think the families of both sides would feel a lot more comfortable with that, knowing full well that these two people work very professionally together and they're also close friends. But it stops because they respect each other's families, for example.
Yeah, I think that's a very good, like that sounds like such a simple example, but
Yeah.
that's a good example in itself. Yeah, I think from just our conversation here today, it sounds very much be confident, develop your EQ skills, know your worth, and also intentionally creating healthy relationships at the workplace. And what I mean about the last one is that because it's like a team effort to raise that next generation of female leaders and decision makers. So thank you so much. But before I let you go and let everybody else go, do you have any like final words to say about raising the next generation of female leaders?
You know, you mentioned about knowing your worth, and yes, I did say that that is very important. But the other thing is knowing yourself, I think is important, knowing your limitations as well, so that you don't, overstep, for example, and take on too much, and then therefore you disappoint yourself and you disappoint the people around you. That's not very good for mental health to do that. So it's important to know our own selves, our own limitations, but do push those limitations, and you do so by learning. So go and continue learning. Don't ever stop, and be interested in what's going on around you.
I like that. That's a very nice, like a very nice ending to this conversation about just be a continuous learner, be a lifelong learner, willing to
Oh
expand, be
yes.
curious. Okay, I'm gonna end with I think it's a compliment. Well, no, I don't think it is a compliment. Darina Yusof says that in my dealings with her, Professor Elizabeth also has amazing networking skills and leverages the same to get the best outcome possible. So I think that's a very sweet ending there, Darina.
Thank you so much, Darina. We yum chow, okay, Darina?
Okay, I just want to say a huge thank you to Professor Elizabeth Lee for joining us and sharing your insights in our very first Hear Her Raw lunch talk as part of LearnTech Asia's Women in Learning series. So thank you so much, Professor Elizabeth Lee. And thank you to all our participants. We want to thank you so much for taking time out of your lunch to actually just come and hear me ask Professor Lee all of the questions I've wanted to ask her for a while. So thank you so much for attending this session, and we hope that you will come and attend the other sessions. We'll let you know when we have the other Hear Her Raw Lunch Talk sessions. And in the meantime, if you want to keep up to date with our Women in Learning series, please do go ahead and visit us at learntechasia.com, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much, Professor Elizabeth, and thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Michelle. And thank you all for tuning in. I'm very heartened. Thank you.